Hi, if you don't know me, I'm Katie. I'm a reluctant VTuber. Hi. And I write about indie games on a small website called youtube.com. But today I'm taking a break from all that to talk about drama! That's right, girls. Settle in and grab a drink because Lady Drama has once again blessed us with a tasty nugget of other people's foibles. Let's get into it. I'll tell you what happened and then promise I do have actually something of substance to say. I swear to God, I don't want to be a drama channel. Please don't write in the papers that I'm a drama channel. Let's start with our hero. Accursed Farms is a retro gaming channel run by this guy, Ross. On his channel, Ross has been covering old games for over a decade. And spending so much time wading through old games, he is no stranger to the phenomenon of abandonware. Games that you can't play anymore because they need outdated hardware or plugins that just don't run anymore or there's some other technical problem. All I know is try install game no work, Katie sad. And this isn't some niche problem. 87% of games ever made are considered critically endangered. That is to say, you would never be able to play them again in any format. That's several libraries of Alexandria that are just about to be set on fire. The hardest games to preserve are online games because they depend on a server that's hosted somewhere. But what happens if the host goes out of business? What happens if the game just isn't profitable enough, so the suits decide to shut the server down a week after it comes out? What if the guy who does the server maintenance finally quits his horrible job and runs from the building shouting, "Freedom! Freedom!" So that's where Ross stepped up with his initiative, Stop Killing Games, a consumer rights group that asserts the radical position that you paid for this game, you should have some way to keep playing it. What that means is an end-of-life plan for online games. And what exactly that looks like can range from anything to we give the source code to our devoted user base so that they can run their own server, to we patch the game so a facsimile of the online mode can be experienced offline as a single player, to any number of things you could imagine in between. There's a lot of technical details to this part, and it's really not what I'm here to talk about today. Ross put together a pretty comprehensive FAQ on the Stop Killing Games website, so you can read about it yourself. I'll put the link in the description. My point is that the general idea here is a fantastic one. A company shouldn't get to take something that you bought away from you. Who would disagree with that? Enter Piratesoft! A huge channel, almost 10 times the size of Accursed Farms, that posted 2 super popular videos and a stream about why he strongly disagreed with the movement. His arguments basically boil down to 3 things. The asks are vague, it would cost the company too much money to do this, so fewer games would get made, and it's not always possible for games to be taken offline or enter a user-supported mode because of technical reasons. I started to prepare responses to each of these points when I realized that I kind of kept arriving at the same conclusion. In his video, he says,
"These are 2 different ideologies, and that's okay to have 2 different ideologies. I just won't agree with it."
And I'm haunted by the giant barn door of a question this leaves open. Okay, so what is your ideology? Piratesoft says he has a lot of experience in the game industry, and his experience gives him a unique insight into why the Stop Killing Games initiative is going about things all wrong. And he never once says, "I don't think games should be preserved." However, listening to him, I'm starting to wonder if that is what he believes. Because, if you think the movement is vague, why not submit some clarifying questions in an email or something and suggest some improvements to the language? You have the power to make it less vague here. If you think it's not always possible for games to be taken offline, why not try to come up for guidelines for which games should remain responsible for end-of-life plans and which games should be let off the hook? But he doesn't. So maybe he thinks that games shouldn't be preserved. Maybe that's his ideology. I mean, I don't know what else to conclude here because he doesn't offer any alternatives. Everything he's done here seems aimed just at stopping the initiative. And that just strikes me as such a defeatist attitude. He thinks the movement isn't perfect, so no initiative is better than a flawed initiative. It's kind of giving me better things aren't possible. Sorry, folks. And it's frankly weird how strongly against it he is. While his main video on Stop Killing Games is mostly pretty civil, he's kind of a huge jerk on the stream he did about the initiative.
The level of stupid that I just had to receive was like sitting on Twitter for 12 hours. This shit sucks.
Oh, gamers, you're my problematic faves. Why so furious? Why spend this much time tearing it down? I mean, maybe he's just being an extra reactive drama monger for views, but like, game preservation is such a weird thing to be a heel for and fight against. Like, I just don't think there's a good argument against game preservation, and I bet my bottom dollar he'd deny my accusation that he's anti-game preservation. I kind of suspect he just doubled down, saying the initiative is vague and not practical, but of course games should be preserved. But again, if that's how you feel, why try to kill it instead of fix it? Well, okay, I have a crackpot theory. To explain it to you, I'm going to turn this question around on myself. Why am I such a passionate fan of game preservation? It's a pretty niche thing, and when the world is burning, why waste any time at all thinking about it? They're just video games, right? And to answer that, we're going to have to talk to 1930s philosopher Walter Benjamin. That's right, you thought this was a commentary video, and it was a video essay the whole time. Now you legally have to stay and finish the whole thing. Wait, no, don't go. Here, wait, stop, look, it's an anime babe. Yeah, I love him too. That's why I became one. Okay, you ready to keep going? We'll make this fun. I promise. Walt was writing in 1930s Germany, right when these guys were doing their, solutioneering, let's call it. And he was Jewish, so don't worry. He fled the country in 1932. His brother, though, is not quite so lucky. So, Walt, he's writing about art, and he's ba-da-ba-ba loving it because, dear reader, film was literally just invented, and I cannot tell you how transformational this new invention was. The whole definition of art kind of got tossed up in the air for a while. It's a lot like a certain zombie discourse about whether or not video games are art. Well, Walt notices in the 1930s, after film is invented, that there's a radical shift in the way that art objects are even perceived. So he does what any video essayist, media studies professor, would do. He develops an ontology. He says, historically, art was used for ritual or religion or ceremony, but with the invention of photography and film, he notices that art's role in society has shifted. It used to be that you could only see the Venus de Milo if the original statue was in your direct eye line. But now, you can just take a picture of it and see it whenever you want. You might even go to a museum to see it in person because the experience of being in the presence of the statue is just different. He calls that the aura, that whoa feeling you get from looking up at the Sistine Chapel, or even just seeing the Rocky Mountains in person. The aura is defined by sharing a time and space with a unique art object. It's an experience that you can only have in the presence of this piece of art. And that photograph of the Venus de Milo, it has way less aura than the real thing. And film, well, film barely has any aura at all, because it depends on the mass reproduction of not just one, but many images, oftentimes taken from distinct spaces and times. You might watch Bella leap from a cliff to try to be closer to Edward, but in reality, Kristen Stewart might have started that jump on June 13th in Vancouver and ended it in June 1st in a soundstage somewhere in LA, for all we know. There is no original leap to be in the presence of, and as an audience, we're totally fine with that. However, in 1930s Germany, Benjamin also witnessed how a certain political party used film as a propaganda tool to sell an idea to the masses. He noticed how Goebbels' films worked to aestheticize the military, the government, and politics itself. The people who watched it thought, wow, look how strong my country is. This was inserting aura back into film. It was putting an aura around the politics themselves. He called this the aestheticization of politics. And Hitler and pals used these films as cover. On one hand, they were convincing the masses that Germany was stronger than ever thanks to his policies, but really that was just cover for kidnapping people who didn't look white enough, destroying unions, and seizing wealth in order to trap all the money and power at the top of the political hierarchy. And all the while, the fetishizing aura of the propaganda films convinced the public that they were going to be empowered by these actions. Somehow. Just you wait and see. Benjamin didn't stop at criticizing Germany either. He also noted that the cult of celebrity of Hollywood movies was injecting aura back into film over in the States. Leave it to capitalists. It doesn't matter if it's pork rind futures or an innate, ineffable human quality. They will find a way to commodify and sell it. He worried that celebrity culture served to distract US Americans from more important matters, like class struggle. That in making the wealthy glamorous and relatable, it became harder to criticize the wealthy for hoarding more than their fair share and perpetuating policies that didn't help people who needed the most help. So, a lot of complaining from Benjamin here, but unlike Piratesoft, he offers a solution. If the problem is the aestheticization of politics, the solution is the politicization of art. And that sounds a lot like making art with a political message, which I'm sure the keep politics out of my games crowd would just love, but it's not just cramming in some overtly political message. He felt that by decaying the aura of the art, making it less of a cult object, people would start to see through the aura. When the aura decays, the spell it casts on you is suddenly broken, and you can see the work more clearly. I mean, think about this. When I saw The 300 in a theater in high school, oh my god, I totally just dated myself. I am so old, guys. I was so psyched. I remember doing kick jumps off of benches with my friend when we got out of the theater. We were so amped, dude. I was completely swept up by the vibe. But when I rewatched it over and over, and when others watched it and wrote about their thoughts on it, my perspective slowly started to shift. I noticed that the movie had some pretty busted takes on having a disability. And why are the Persians barbarians and they're super evil, while the Western Spartans are supposedly more civilized and righteous? Like, what? It's not really true to the original historical events here. These inherent political themes that I had digested uncritically were suddenly revealed to me. And how? Through reproducibility. A DVD release, a Blu-ray release, a streaming release. The repetition of the work gives you a chance to see it for everything that the work is, not just its aura. This works in the other direction too. Reproductions can show you things that the original simply cannot. Benjamin pointed out that a slow motion shot or a close-up is a reproduction of the original, but tweaked. If you watch a flower bloom in real time, you'll get A, super bored because it takes forever, and B, you'll miss details that only this time-lapsed reproduction of the bloom can show you. Your brain suddenly has access to parts of this process that were previously closed off to you. And yeah, that can serve to politicize the art, even if it's just a flower blooming. I mean, look at it, it's beautiful. This unique view on nature shows exactly what climate activists and conservationists are fighting to save, and it's the whole premise of things like Planet Earth. It might even inspire you to get involved in climate activism. So, I've been talking about film, but I think this all applies to video games as well. If anything, video games have even less aura and facilitate more reproduction than film. I mean, like film, there's not really an original. We talk about picking up a copy of Mario Kart from GameStop. Or, I mean, we did when that was a thing. I mean, now everything's a digital download. But what's a download but copying a bunch of files onto your hard drive? And games are constantly getting patched, so it's impossible to point to an original version. I mean, nobody thinks the alpha version of a game has some magic aura around it because it's an incomplete version. Is playing version 1.1 giving you less aura than version 1.0? No, because we don't even think about it. Many versions is an expected part of the process here. Meanwhile, actually playing the game, we see the same breakdown of aura that we see in film. Loading areas break up the space and time of your experience, just like how Bella's leap was broken into multiple discrete shots. And you, being in control of a scene, you can completely control your own frame of reference and zoom in for as much detail as you can. Like observing a close-up shot of a flower blooming, new aspects can be revealed just by taking time to look at small details that the game includes. And this aspect especially is completely on steroids because you, the viewer, are responsible for what gets revealed. You're in the driver's seat here. Video games are maybe the most reproducible medium. All the technological reproducibility of films and more. Because you are an active participant in revealing new aspects of the work to yourself. Is it unhinged to link internet drama to the writings of Frankfurt School philosopher Walter Benjamin? Well, probably. But we're living in unhinged times. You might think that preserving games is a niche effort. I mean, why care when the world is on fire? Why demand it? And if that's how you really feel, I'm here to tell you that you are underestimating the power of games and you are underestimating the power of art. Art can save your life. Even silly art that didn't mean to change anything. Even art made by people with iffy ideas. It shows people a new perspective on the status quo and challenges them to ask, you want to change any of this? I believe games are the most powerful medium that humans have ever invented. I write about games because they changed my life for the better, and I wanted to share that experience with someone else. When someone stumbles onto something I wrote in 2 decades and says, this is interesting, I should check out what she's talking about here in this game, it should be possible for them to do that. Preserving games is preserving their reproduction, preserving their ability to change hearts and minds for decades to come. And I think that's something worth making an unhinged YouTube rant about. So, going back to my original question, why is Piratesoft so angry about this movement? Well, I don't know this man's heart. Multiple videos I've watched about this unfolding situation have referred to his huge ego and theorized that he's just unable to admit that he was wrong about his perception of the movement. But that doesn't quite explain things for me, because this man came out of the gate angry. Way before the internet tried to take him aside and correct him, he was already saying,
eat my entire ass.
Gross, dude. And if I'm just doing pure vibe association, you know what his anger feels like to me? It feels a little reminiscent of the whole keep politics out of games thing. And that feeling gives me pause. Because after reading a little Benjamin and his call to politicize art, well, I'm just more suspicious than I ever have been about people who demand that we keep politics out of art. Defeats half the purpose, in my opinion. We actually need to fight to keep politics in art. When we don't, there's nothing to combat the aestheticization of politics that bad actors will use to try to distract you while they rob you blind. That said, I made a huge leap here, purely based on vibes. I have no idea how Piratesoft feels about the word woke, and truthfully, I don't want to know. I haven't looked into his history or any of his other content. I don't want to know about any skeletons in this man's closet. None of my business. I think a more interesting question to pursue here is, why does his anger remind me of this anti-political sentiment that in content is completely different? And I think it's because both arguments want to preserve the status quo. Don't start putting pronouns in video games. Don't preserve more games. So why is he so invested in preserving the status quo here? Well, one more time, let me emphasize, I don't know what's in this man's heart, but I have a theory. He mentions, quite a bit actually, how much experience he has working with AAA studios. And the Stop Killing Games movement would affect the bottom line of AAA studios. And if the past couple years have demonstrated anything to us, it's that there's nothing these AAA studios care more about than their bottom line. So I wonder if he's just trying to protect these giant companies that he kinda sees as his allies. Maybe he thinks that if he can champion for them, save them a few legal battles and a few bucks just by nipping this whole thing in the bud, he'll remain in their good graces. Heck, maybe they'll even throw him some table scraps. And I think that's a crucial mistake. Capital, games capital in particular, does not reward good behavior. Legendary studios get dissolved overnight because number not go up fast enough. They don't care about you. They will never care about you. When you, quote, take their side in the fight for consumers' rights, all you're doing is building your own cage and sitting in it, hoping they come by with a bowl of water eventually. And my guy, it's not gonna happen. So if by some crazy chance you watch this, Mr. Soft, I want to introduce you to an opportunity. If you are the gifted game dev that you claim to be, you could be a hero to consumers everywhere. Join us in a coalition to stop killing games. This can be your face-turn moment. The man who went from the ultimate hater to using his deep wells of knowledge and experience to improve the initiative instead of just tearing it down. Hey, Editing Katie here. Since recording, our boy Piratesoft here has gotten an earful from the internet. You know how the internet can be. And I have a pretty chill community, so I don't think I need to tell anyone this, but just in case, don't be mean to Piratesoft. If going out of your way to be mean to someone on the internet sounds like a good use of your time, what are you doing? That's not helping things. As for Ross, I don't know Ross either. I've just been watching his channel for a couple of years, but at this point, the social has become fully para, because one look at this guy, and I feel like I know Ross. He reminds me of every metalhead I've ever met, which is to say, just the sweetest, most earnest, hardworking dudes. Dudes who you could call at 2 a.m. to come jump your car, and they show up with a huge smile on their face, and they never once make you feel even a little bad for waking them up. Dudes who, can't even fathom that someone else would have ill intentions. Or maybe they can fathom it, but they choose not to because their souls are pure and good. Maybe because they've headbanged all the demons out. I don't know how they do it. But I do know that Ross and people like him are our bravest soldiers and should be protected at all costs. So to refer to Ross's approach as used car salesman tactics or disingenuous is galling to me. This is a guy who loves games that much and decided to put a sizable chunk of his limited resource and energy into making the world a better place. And yeah, I think there's some valid criticisms of the movement. For example, he probably could have benefited from actually having a budget, but he chose not to fundraise because he didn't have a specific plan for what he was going to do with the money. And in his own words,
taking money with no plan, that's a grift.
This man is pure of heart, and he's gotten stomped by a bigger channel for it. And that injustice just rankles me to no end. And hearing him talk about this cause that used to mean so much to him breaks my damn heart. When I hear him talk about the movement, it really sounds like he's suffering from a pretty bad case of activist burnout because he's been taking L's left and right. And at this point, he's just about at the end of his rope. But there is one last chance. There's a petition in the EU, but he needs 1 million signatures. If he can get 1 million signatures, then, as the Stop Killing Games website states, there's a strong chance that the EU Commission will pass some kind of law to protect consumers' rights around game purchases. But you have to be an EU citizen to sign. Now, I know I have a few of you beautiful Europeans in my audience, so if you haven't heard of this petition or haven't had a chance to sign yet, I want to encourage you to do so. As I'm recording this, they have between 600 and 700,000 signatures. Hi, Editing Katie here again with some good news and some bad news. Good news, since recording this, Stop Killing Games has reached their goal of 1 million signatures. But bad news. There are reports that some of these signatures are from non-EU citizens or are otherwise fake, which is actually illegal. This isn't like a change.org petition. This is a tool of actual governance. So what that means is they need even more signatures from actual EU citizens. Right now, their goal is 1.4 million to account for potential fraudulent signatures. So if you can sign it, it's still very much important. Okay, that's all. Bye-bye! Remember, this isn't about supporting Ross, and it's definitely not about sticking it to Piratesoft. This is about maintaining your rights to the things that you bought. It's about keeping art accessible to everyone so it can change hearts and minds. Don't let this be a footnote in a global slide towards handing all our power to companies. This is your chance to take that power back and do something that affects real change. Thanks for watching and bearing with me taking this hot gossip to some pretty heady places. If that's your jam, I have other videos too. In this one, we compare Daniel Mullen's An Inscription to Rene Magritte, so that's fun. This video, however, would not be possible without my brave and generous patrons. Thank you all so much for your support. If you're interested in becoming a patron, there's a link in my description. The $10 per month people even get stickers and a handwritten thank you note. I love my patrons so much that I try to wish them a happy birthday when I can. For example...
Hello, I'm Whoosh, and I came down from space. I traveled for miles to put a smile on your face. Yo,
Sarah V.
happy birthday. You're cool. My home is Mars, and the trip is long, but it's worth it to sing you this birthday song. Yo,
Sarah V.
happy birthday. You're cool.
That was awesome!
Everybody wish Sarah V a happy birthday in the comments. You're all implicated.
I'm implicated.